When you've spent 4 years grinding away to help a company triple its revenue, you don't expect to be asked to survive on less than your rent. But what made my blood boil wasn't the offer itself. It was the smirk on her face when she said it. 10 days later, a single text message from me cost her $3 million. My name is Emily Ward, and until 10 days ago, I believed hard work and loyalty still meant something in corporate America. At 33, I'd spent the last 4 years of my life building products that helped transform Nexicor from a struggling fintech startup into a company worth $150 million. Not that I owned any meaningful piece of it, I was just another employee with a fancy title and a mountain of student debt. Minneapolis winters are brutal, but nothing compared to the cold that permeated our office after Cynthia Hawthorne took over as CEO 6 months ago. She swept in from Wall Street with her Hermes bags and dead eyes, promising to optimize our human capital and realign our core competencies. We all knew what that meant. The firing started within weeks. I'd survived the first 3 rounds of layoffs, watching colleagues pack their desks into cardboard boxes while security guards hovered nearby. Each time, I told myself I was safe. After all, I led the product team that had developed our flagship payment processing platform. My team's work had directly contributed to our 300% revenue growth. Surely that counted for something. Nexicor's office occupied the top 3 floors of a glass tower in downtown Minneapolis. From my desk, I could see the Mississippi River frozen solid, a ribbon of white cutting through the city. The view used to inspire me. These days, it just reminded me how trapped I felt. The company culture had always been intense. Performance above all was practically tattooed on the walls. But under our previous CEO, there was at least a pretense of caring about employees. We had team lunches, decent benefits, and leaders who knew our names. Cynthia changed all that. She treated us like entries in a spreadsheet, costs to be minimized rather than people who'd built the company. My team had shrunk from 12 to 5. Those of us who remained worked 60-hour weeks just to keep up. I'd started keeping a bottle of Excedrin in my desk drawer and drinking coffee that could strip paint. My apartment in Uptown had become just a place to sleep and shower between office marathons. Jules, my closest friend at work and one of our senior developers, would sometimes catch my eye during Cynthia's all-hands meetings. We'd perfected the art of communicating without words, a slight eyebrow raise when Cynthia spouted corporate nonsense, a tiny headshake when she announced another restructuring initiative. Jules had been with the company even longer than me, joining when there were only 15 employees. She'd seen it all. You know she's gunning for you, right? Jules had warned me last week over drinks at our usual spot, a dive bar that served strong whiskeys and didn't judge our complaints about corporate life. Why would she? My team's metrics are stellar. Jules had given me a look that suggested I was being naive. Since when has that mattered to people like her? I should have listened, but I was too buried in product roadmaps and sprint planning to see the knife aimed at my back. In the fintech world, you learn to watch for market disruptions and competitive threats. Nobody teaches you that sometimes the biggest danger comes from the person signing your paychecks. The meeting invite appeared in my calendar on a Tuesday morning. Quick sync, Cynthia and Emily. No agenda, no context, just 15 minutes blocked at 2 p.m. My stomach immediately knotted. In 6 months, Cynthia had never requested a one-on-one with me. I spent the morning trying to focus on a product spec, but my mind kept wandering. Was this about the delayed feature release? The budget overrun on our last sprint? By the time 2 p.m. rolled around, I'd convinced myself I was being promoted or fired. Nothing in between seemed possible with Cynthia. Her corner office was a monument to corporate power, floor-to-ceiling windows, a desk that cost more than my car, and not a single personal item in sight. She didn't look up when I knocked. "Sit," she said, still typing on her laptop. I waited for 3 minutes while she finished whatever was apparently more important than our meeting. Finally, she closed the laptop and fixed me with what she probably thought was a warm smile. It looked more like a predator sizing up prey. "Emily, I want to start by saying how much we value your contributions to Nexicor." The words were honey, but her tone was vinegar. I'd heard this speech before, usually right before someone got fired. Your team has done exceptional work, she continued. Really exceptional. Which is why I know you'll understand when I say we need leaders who can make sacrifices for the greater good of the company. I'm not sure I follow, I said, though the knot in my stomach suggested I did. She leaned back in her chair, that practiced smile never wavering. We're entering a critical phase. To attract the right investors, we need to demonstrate fiscal discipline. I'm asking key leaders to accept temporary compensation adjustments. Compensation adjustments? Yes, I'm proposing you continue in your role at 5% of your current salary, just temporarily. Of course, think of it as an investment in Nexicor's future. The words hung in the air between us. 5%, that was less than minimum wage, less than my rent, less than my student loan payments. I must have misheard. I'm sorry, did you say 5%? I did. She tilted her head, studying my reaction like a scientist observing a lab rat. Is that going to be a problem? That's $3,500 a year. I can't live on that. Can't is a strong word, Emily. I prefer to think in terms of won't. The smile finally dropped, replaced by something colder. If you're not willing to make this sacrifice, I'm sure we can find someone who is. The job market is quite saturated these days. The threat was crystal clear. Take a 95% pay cut or lose my job entirely. My hands clenched in my lap, nails digging into my palms. I need time to think about this, I managed. Of course. You have until tomorrow morning. But Emily? She opened her laptop again, dismissing me without looking up. Remember, there are hundreds of people out there who would kill for your position, even at 5%. I stood on shaky legs and walked to the door. As I reached for the handle, she spoke again. Oh, and Emily? This conversation stays between us. I'd hate for your team to lose confidence in your leadership. The walk back to my desk felt like a funeral march. I sat down, opened my laptop, and stared at the screen without seeing anything. Around me, my team worked diligently, trusting that their leader had their backs. They had no idea I'd just been asked to prostitute my dignity for the privilege of keeping a title. Within an hour, I received another email from Cynthia. Effective, immediately. I was being removed from the new payment gateway project, our biggest initiative of the year. My access to the strategic planning meetings was revoked. The message was clear: submit or be destroyed. That evening, Jules found me in the break room, staring at a cold cup of coffee. What happened? You look like someone died. I wanted to tell her everything, but Cynthia's warning echoed in my head. Just a rough day, I said. Jules wasn't buying it. She glanced around, then leaned in close. Look, I shouldn't tell you this, but I overheard something. Cynthia's been meeting with private equity firms. Word is she's trying to package the company for a quick sale. She needs the books to look good. Really good. What does that have to do with everything? Jules whispered. Lower salary expenses, higher profit margins. She's manufacturing a success story. And we're the cost she's cutting. That night, I sat in my uptown apartment staring at my laptop screen. My bank account showed $3,847. Rent was due in 5 days, $1,150. Student loans would auto-deduct $890 next week. Credit card minimums totaled $400, even if I ate nothing but ramen and canceled everything. I'd be underwater within a month. I'd built my life on the belief that competence mattered. Work hard, deliver results, move up, simple. Now I was being asked to work for less than the teenagers making coffee at the Starbucks downstairs. The humiliation burned worse than the financial impossibility of it all. At 3 a.m., I gave up on sleep and made a decision. I wouldn't accept Cynthia's offer. I couldn't. Whatever game she was playing, I refused to be a willing participant. The next morning, I walked into her office at exactly 9 a.m. She was already there, of course, probably since dawn. Sharks don't sleep. I've considered your offer, I said, not bothering to sit. I decline. Her eyebrows rose slightly, the first genuine emotion I'd seen from her. I see. That's disappointing. Emily, I thought you were smarter than this. Within an hour, I was reassigned. My new role? Data architecture support. Translation. I'd gone from leading a team building cutting-edge payment systems to maintaining legacy databases nobody had touched in 3 years. My desk was moved to the basement level, a windowless room that smelled like old carpet and broken dreams. The humiliation was surgical in its precision. Former team members avoided eye contact in the hallways. Meeting invites disappeared from my calendar. My company email was removed from distribution lists. I'd become a ghost. Technically employed, but professionally dead. For 2 weeks, I sat in that basement parsing through old data, trying to make sense of systems built before I'd even joined the company. The work was mind-numbing, but it gave me time to think, and observe, and notice things. Like how certain database tables had been recently accessed by admin accounts. Tables that contained historical bonus data. Tables that should have been locked down years ago. My fingers hesitated over the keyboard. I had legitimate access. My new role required me to audit these systems. But what I found made my blood run cold. Bonus allocations from the past 6 months showed a clear pattern. Massive payouts to C-suite executives, always timed just before major layoff announcements. The January file was particularly damning. Line 17 showed a $500,000 performance bonus to Cynthia herself, dated 1 week before she'd laid off 30 engineers. I started documenting everything, screenshots, file paths, timestamps. Not because I had a plan, but because the rage needed somewhere to go. Every spurious bonus was an insult to the people who'd built this company. Every hidden payout was stolen from developers who'd been told there wasn't budget for raises. Jules found me one evening, still in the basement at 9 p.m. She brought Thai food and bourbon, a peace offering and a warning combined. "You need to be careful," she said, watching me work. "Cynthia's not just cruel, she's connected. The board loves her. The investors think she walks on water." "She's stealing from the company," I said, showing her what I'd found. Jules whistled low. "That's... Jesus, Emily. That's fraud." "Is it, or is it just executive compensation?" The bitterness in my voice surprised even me. "Who's going to care? Who's going to do anything about it? You could go to the board." "With what standing? I'm the disgruntled employee who wouldn't take a pay cut. They'd bury me." We sat in silence, eating pad thai in the fluorescent gloom. My phone buzzed with another student loan reminder. My credit card company had called twice that day. The walls were closing in, but all I could think about was that smirk on Cynthia's face, that absolute certainty that she could destroy me without consequence. "There has to be something," I muttered. "Some way to make this right." Jules studied me carefully. "You know that journalist, Jason something, the one who wrote about the TechRite acquisition scandal? Jason Morrison, Financial Times. He's been sniffing around fintech companies lately, looking for stories about executive compensation abuse." She pulled up his Twitter on her phone. "See? He's specifically interested in pre-acquisition financial engineering." A plan began forming in my mind. Not revenge, exactly. Justice. Truth. Let the facts speak for themselves and see where the chips fell. But I'd have to be smart about it. Smarter than Cynthia thought I was capable of being. I spent the next 3 days crafting my approach with the precision of a surgeon. No emotional outbursts, no reckless moves. If I was going to expose Cynthia, I had to be smarter than she'd ever imagined I could be. First, I created a new email account from a coffee shop Wi-Fi across town, nothing traceable to me. Then I researched Jason Morrison thoroughly, his previous articles, his sources, his style. He had a reputation for protecting whistleblowers and a particular hatred for executive corruption. Perfect. My first email to him was deliberately vague. "Mr. Morrison, I have information about pre-acquisition financial engineering at a Minneapolis fintech company. The CEO is inflating valuations through systematic compensation fraud. Interested?" He responded within 2 hours. Always interested in documented fraud. What do you have? I fed him breadcrumbs. A screenshot here, a bonus allocation there. Never enough to identify me, but sufficient to prove I had real access. I was careful to only send information I discovered through legitimate work duties, nothing that could be construed as hacking or unauthorized access. Jason was good. Within days, he'd connected dots I hadn't even seen. The shell company in Delaware registered to Cynthia's sister. The timing of stock option grants just before major announcements. The pattern of executives cashing out while employee equity remained locked up. This is bigger than just bonus fraud, he wrote in one encrypted message. Your CEO is systematically looting the company before a sale. I need more on the January allocations. I stayed late again, legitimately auditing the system as my job required. But now I knew what to look for. Line 17. In the January file wasn't just a bonus, it was part of a complex scheme to move cash through the company's subsidiaries. The money trail was intricate but traceable. My basement office had one advantage: no one bothered to check on me. I worked in shadows, documenting everything with the methodical patience of someone with nothing left to lose. My credit cards were maxed. I'd started selling furniture to make rent, but each discovery fueled me forward. The breakthrough came when I found an email backup from December. Cynthia had been sloppy, forwarding internal compensation discussions to her personal Gmail. In one thread, she explicitly discussed timing bonuses to avoid SEC scrutiny during the acquisition talks. I didn't send this to Jason directly. Instead, I crafted something more elegant. Nexicor's largest institutional investor was Meridian Capital, holding 22% of the company. Their managing partner, David Wright, was known for his zero-tolerance approach to executive misconduct. He'd personally ousted 3 CEOs in the past 5 years. I spent hours drafting a single text message. It had to be perfect, professional enough to be taken seriously, specific enough to demand action, vague enough to protect my identity. Finally, at 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday, I sent it from a burner phone I'd bought with cash. Ask Cynthia about line 17 in the January bonus file. If you don't, the Wall Street Journal will. Simple, direct, devastating. Then I waited. Friday morning came with no visible changes. I sat in my basement, refreshing my email, checking financial news sites. Nothing. Had Wright ignored it? Dismissed it as a prank? At 2:17 p.m., Jules texted me. Emergency board meeting just called. Cynthia looked like she'd seen a ghost. My hands trembled as I typed back. Really? Security just locked down the executive floor. Something big is happening. I forced myself to stay calm, to continue my database work as if nothing had changed. But my heart was racing. Had Wright taken the bait? Was the board finally looking at what their CEO had been doing? At 4:45 p.m., my computer screen flickered, then died. My badge stopped working. My company phone went dark. For a moment, panic seized me. Had they traced the message back to me? Then I realized it wasn't just me. Throughout the building, computers were shutting down. The board had triggered an emergency system lockdown, preserving all data for investigation. I gathered my few personal items and headed for the exit. In the lobby, employees clustered in confused groups. Security guards stood at every door, checking bags, ensuring no company property left the building. As I passed the executive elevator, it opened. Cynthia emerged, flanked by 2 men in dark suits I didn't recognize. Lawyers, maybe, or investigators. Her perfect composure had cracked. Her face was pale, her signature smile nowhere to be seen. Our eyes met for just a moment. She didn't recognize me as a threat, just another forgettable employee in her wake. But I saw something in her expression I'd never seen before. Fear. I walked out into the Minneapolis winter, the cold air sharp in my lungs. My phone, my personal one, buzzed with a message from Jules. Check the journal, now. The Wall Street Journal article went live at 5:03 p.m. Jason Morrison had worked fast, faster than I'd expected. The headline was brutal in its simplicity. Nexicor CEO under investigation for pre-acquisition financial manipulation. I stood outside a Caribou Coffee, reading on my phone as snow began to fall. Every paragraph was a precision strike. Jason had woven together the bonus scandal, the shell companies, and something I hadn't even known. Cynthia had been negotiating with 3 different private equity firms, playing them against each other while manipulating the books to drive up the price. According to documents reviewed by the Journal, CEO Cynthia Hawthorne authorized over $2.3 million in executive bonuses days before major layoffs, while simultaneously reporting reduced operational costs to potential acquirers. My burner phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Nice work, JM. I destroyed the phone immediately, dropping the pieces in 3 different trash cans on my walk home. There could be no trail back to me. By Saturday morning, the story had exploded. Financial Twitter was having a field day. Nexicor's stock price, which had been climbing steadily under Cynthia's leadership, crashed 18% in pre-market trading. CNBC picked up the story. Bloomberg ran a segment. I watched from my apartment, wrapped in a blanket, eating cereal for dinner because it was all I could afford. Every news alert felt like vindication. Every percentage point the stock dropped was a small victory against the woman who'd tried to break me. Sunday brought the emergency investor call. Someone leaked the audio to TechCrunch. David Wright's voice was ice cold as he questioned Cynthia about the bonus allocations. Her responses were evasive, legal speak that fooled no one. Line 17, Ms. Hawthorne. Wright pressed. Can you explain the timing of that particular distribution? The pause before her answer told everyone what they needed to know. By Monday, the full scope was clear. The SEC had opened a formal investigation. The 3 private equity firms had withdrawn their offers. The acquisition Cynthia had been engineering, her golden parachute worth an estimated $15 million, evaporated overnight. But the real damage came from an unexpected source. Meridian Capital, furious at being blindsided, triggered a clause in their investment agreement. Due to material misrepresentation by executive leadership, they could force a sale of Cynthia's shares at the current market price, not the inflated valuation she'd been counting on. Her 8% stake, worth $12 million at Friday's close, was now valued at barely $9 million and falling. Tuesday's board meeting was swift and merciless. Cynthia was terminated for cause, forfeiting her severance package. The CFO went with her. An interim CEO was appointed, ironically, our former head of engineering who Cynthia had pushed out 6 months earlier. I watched it all from my basement office, still technically employed but forgotten in the chaos. My badge still didn't work on most doors, but no one had officially fired me. I existed in corporate limbo, a ghost in the machine. Wednesday afternoon. Jules found me packing up my desk. You're leaving? Seems like a good time, I said, carefully placing my coffee mug in a box. Fresh start and all that. She studied me with those sharp developer eyes. That WSJ article, the timing was incredible. Lucky break, I said, not meeting her gaze. Yeah, lucky. She helped me carry a box to the elevator. You know, I'm starting something new, a fintech startup focusing on ethical payment processing. We could use a head of product. I nearly dropped the box. Jules, I can't. I'm broke. I can barely make rent. Good thing we just closed our seed round then. $2 million from investors who are very interested in hiring talent that understands integrity. She smiled. The pay won't be what you made here, but it'll be fair, and you'll own meaningful equity. As we waited for the elevator, my personal phone buzzed with a news alert. The final tally was in. Between the stock crash, the forced sale, and legal fees, Cynthia Hawthorne had lost over $3 million in 4 days. All from one text message. The elevator arrived, and we stepped inside. As the doors closed on Nexicor, I thought about karma, justice, and the price of arrogance. Cynthia had thought she could destroy people without consequence, that her power made her untouchable. She'd been wrong. So, Jules said as we reached the lobby, Can you start Monday? I looked back at the building that had been my professional home for 4 years, then at my friend offering me a future built on something better than greed. Yeah, I said, shouldering my box. I can start Monday. I cleared out my apartment that weekend, donating the furniture I hadn't already sold. My life in Minneapolis had shrunk to what could fit in my Honda Civic. It felt appropriate somehow, starting clean, unburdened by the weight of what Nexicor had become. My resignation letter was 3 sentences long. No explanations, no accusations, just professional courtesy to a company that had shown me none. I emailed it Sunday night to the interim CEO, who probably didn't even know I still worked there. Monday morning. I drove to Finloop's office, a converted warehouse in the North Loop neighborhood. No glass towers, no marble lobbies, just exposed brick, decent coffee, and 15 people who believed in building something ethical. Jules gave me the tour, introducing me to developers, designers, and one excitable golden retriever named Commit, who apparently held the title of Chief Morale Officer. We're bootstrapped right now, Jules explained, showing me to a desk by a window. No fancy perks, no executive bonuses, just good people doing good work. Sounds perfect, I said, and meant it. I threw myself into the role with an energy I'd forgotten I possessed. We were building payment rails for small businesses, focusing on transparency and fair fees. Every line of code, every product decision was guided by a simple question. Is this right? 3 weeks in, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Ms. Ward, this is Sarah Hendricks from the SEC. We'd like to speak with you about your time at Nexicor. My blood chilled. Had they traced the message? But Sarah's next words eased my panic. You're not under investigation. We're interested in your insights as a former product lead. Would you be willing to discuss the company's financial reporting practices? I agreed to meet, spending an afternoon in a federal building downtown, answering questions about processes, systems, and culture. I told the truth about the work environment, the pressure, the assignment to the basement, but I never mentioned finding those files or sending any messages. As far as they knew, I was just another employee who'd left during the chaos. The investigation would continue for months, but I was done looking backward. Finloop grew faster than we'd anticipated. Our transparent fee structure resonated with businesses tired of hidden charges and surprise costs. By month 3, we'd onboarded 100 merchants. By month 6, we'd raised a Series A. I occasionally checked news about Nexicor. The company had stabilized under new leadership, but the damage to its reputation was permanent. Several executives faced civil penalties. Cynthia Hawthorne was banned from serving as an officer of any public company for 5 years. One evening, debugging code late at the office with Jules and a few others, someone brought up the whole scandal. Wild how it all came crashing down, one of our developers said. That WSJ article came out of nowhere. Someone knew exactly what they were doing, Jules said, catching my eye. Probably saved a lot of people from getting hurt worse. I focused on my screen, fixing a payment routing issue. Sometimes the truth just finds a way out. We worked in comfortable silence after that, building something better than what we'd left behind. My equity in Finloop wouldn't make me rich overnight, but it was mine, earned honestly in a company that valued its people. 6 months after leaving Nexicor, I finally had stable income again. I'd paid off the credit cards, caught up on student loans, even started a small savings account. The basement office felt like a lifetime ago. Jason Morrison published a follow-up article about executive compensation in fintech. He never revealed his source, maintaining the journalistic integrity that made him trustworthy in the first place. But he did note that a single insider with courage can sometimes change an entire industry's trajectory. I printed that article, folded it carefully, and tucked it into my desk drawer at Finloop. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder. Power isn't about titles or corner offices or the ability to destroy careers with a smile. Real power is truth, carefully deployed. The last I heard, Cynthia was working as a consultant. Her reputation in tatters, her fortune diminished. She'd learned what I'd always known. In technology, Information is everything. And sometimes, one text message really can change everything. But I didn't dwell on it. I had code to write, a company to build, and a future that no one could take away from me. The best revenge, I'd learned, wasn't destruction, it was building something better from the ashes of what tried to break you. A year later, I was reviewing code in our new office when Jules dropped a newspaper on my desk. The Financial Times, folded to the business section. "Thought you might want to see this," she said with a knowing smile. The headline was small, buried on page 6. Former Nexicor CEO Cynthia Hawthorne under federal investigation for securities fraud. I read the article slowly. The SEC had expanded their investigation. Criminal charges were being considered. Her assets had been frozen. The consultant work had dried up. She was selling her Minneapolis penthouse. I set the paper aside and went back to my code review. There was no satisfaction in her continued downfall, no joy in watching someone's life unravel. I'd moved past the need for schadenfreude. Finloop had just closed our Series B, $25 million to expand nationwide. My equity was worth something real now. More importantly, we'd helped thousands of small businesses avoid predatory payment processing fees. We'd built something that mattered. That evening, I met an old Nexicor colleague for drinks. She'd been one of the 30 engineers Cynthia had laid off in January. "You know what the funny thing is?" she said, nursing a beer. "I was devastated when I got cut. Thought my career was over. But it forced me to start my own consulting firm. I'm making twice what I did there, working half the hours. Sometimes getting pushed off a cliff teaches you how to fly," I said. She laughed. Or in Cynthia's case, teaches you that gravity always wins. We talked about other things after that. Her new clients, my work at Finloop, the Minnesota Wild's playoff chances. The past was past. 3 days later, I was grabbing coffee when my phone buzzed. A LinkedIn message from a name I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it, then saw the preview. I was an analyst at Nexicor during the Troubles. The message was from someone who'd been in Cynthia's inner circle. One of the young MBAs she'd brought from New York. He wanted to thank me. Not explicitly, he was too careful for that, but the meaning was clear. "What you did saved a lot of people from worse harm," he wrote. She was planning to gut the entire engineering department after the sale. Hundreds of jobs, gone. "You stopped that." I deleted the message without responding. Some conversations were better left unfinished. At our company all-hands that week, Jules announced that Finloop was implementing a radical transparency policy. All salary ranges would be public. Equity grants would be standardized. Executive compensation would be capped at 10x, the median employee salary. "We're building the company we wished we'd worked for," she said, looking directly at me. The team erupted in applause. These weren't the hollow corporate values posted on conference room walls. This was real, structural change, the kind that prevented future Cynthias from taking root. Later, debugging a particularly nasty payment routing issue, I found myself thinking about power dynamics in corporate America. How many employees sat in metaphorical basements, grinding their teeth while executives looted their companies? How many accepted humiliation because they had bills to pay? I'd been lucky. I'd found evidence. I'd known who to tell. I'd had a friend with a startup and perfect timing. Most people didn't get that constellation of chances. But maybe that was changing. The internet had made corporate secrets harder to keep. Investors were getting smarter about executive manipulation. Employees were less willing to suffer in silence. My phone lit up with a news alert. Cynthia Hawthorne had been indicted on 3 counts of securities fraud. If convicted, she faced up to 20 years in prison. The smile in her booking photo looked forced, brittle. I deleted the alert and put my phone away. I had work to do, real work, building something valuable. The code wasn't going to debug itself. That night, walking to my car through downtown Minneapolis, I passed Nexicor's old building. They'd moved offices, downsized to something more sustainable. The top 3 floors where I'd spent 4 years of my life were dark. I thought about sending one more message, something to mark the moment. But there was nothing left to say. The truth had been told. Justice, in its slow and grinding way, had been served. Besides, I'd already sent the only message that mattered. One text, 10 words, $3 million in consequences. Sometimes that's all it takes to balance the scales. I drove home through the Minneapolis winter, the radio playing something forgettable, my mind already on tomorrow's product roadmap. Behind me, the dark tower faded in the rearview mirror. Ahead, the road was clear and full of possibility. The best revenge isn't served cold. It's served with a side of building something better, surrounded by people who share your values, doing work that matters. Everything else is just noise. Thank you for listening to my story. I'm curious, where are you listening from? Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your own thoughts about workplace justice and standing up for what's right. Sometimes sharing our experiences helps others find their own courage.